Blog Talk Radio.
Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It's a special Standing Above the Crowd podcast, hosted by my good friend, a brother, a mentor, James Donaldson, live from Seattle, Washington. Yours truly, Mark Mancini, producing it, 347-205-9631. Catch the archive on blogtalkradio.com/Mancini Sports, podcast platforms, wherever you subscribe to, powered now by Mancini Media. So without further ado, as I lay down the red carpet, put the podium in its place, hand off the mic. James, first of all, how are you? Second of all, how can people get a hold of you? Third of all, you're reciprocating. You're bringing Cleveland now into Seattle.
Well, thanks so much, Mark. It's more like reciprocating, bringing the guest host from Cleveland into Seattle. I've been a guest on his show quite a bit, so he'll be a guest on mine today. But first of all, yeah, doing really great. This is kind of a special edition of Standing Above the Crowd podcast, and with James Donaldson. Normally we do this on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Today we made a little correction, a little addition, and we'll be fine with that. Get back to our regular schedule next week. People can get a hold of me at jamesd@standingabovethecrowd.com, my email that comes directly to me. And I'd love to hear from you. Just shoot a quick email, give me a comment or two, good, bad, or indifferent. It doesn't matter. It's just nice to get the feedback. And also, if you have some thoughts about upcoming guests you'd like to hear, we're going to kind of go, basketball heavy throughout the NBA playoffs, because this is really what the news is all about, the NBA playoffs and the finals coming up. So, and we've got a slew of great NBA basketball guys coming up as well. But today, without any further ado, I've been a guest, been honored to be a guest at least a dozen times, maybe 12, 15 times now, every other week on a great podcast out of Cleveland, Ohio, hosted by a wonderful host, a wonderful man named Peter Ray. And Peter has a podcast called The American Sports History. We're going to talk a little bit about sports history today. We'll talk about Peter and the work he's been doing, how he got into this line of work, what makes him such a fascinating fan about the history of sports, especially American sports. And then, of course, we'll talk some NBA basketball, because that's really what the news is all about the last couple of weeks here with these playoff series going on. So, Peter, without any further ado, I really want to welcome you to our podcast this afternoon. And I wanted to just say thank you so much for all the wonderful conversations we've had on your show, talking, a lot about sports, but more so about the work I'm doing with mental health awareness and suicide prevention. And I really thank you for giving me that stage and that platform to do that. So, Peter, why don't you tell the folks how you're doing, and how did you get into this line of work of hosting a podcast about American sports history?
Hi, James. I'm doing well, and I'm really honored to be on your show with these. Looking at some of the guests who really caught my attention: Lenny Wilkins, Ruthie Bolton, Bill North, and Craig Elo among the. You've had 13 guests so far, really wonderful, and I've loved doing shows with you on talking about your book, your amazing work in mental health. And I was a high school history teacher for 23 years in 2 years in Switzerland, a year in Guam, 20 years in the Philippines, and I came back to Cleveland 9 years ago, and I couldn't get a teaching job. I started making YouTube videos 4.5 years ago, and we've made 742 history videos in all kinds of different areas: world history, American history, book reviews, poetic tours, Cleveland baseball, family history, autobiography, Cleveland basketball, Cleveland football, and baseball. And then I was sort of promoting that channel. I came across Mark Mancini on Facebook, and he has a network, a sports podcast network. So he said, "Hey, you want to have a show?" And that was about more than 2 years ago now, and that's been really wonderful. The show with Mark, and then of course you've been on so many times now. I'm keeping track because it seems important to me. Yeah, you've been on 16 times though, and I just love going through your book, and I've got your other book ready to go through when we get through that. So I think you're just such an interesting. I find people interesting, and you are such an interesting person, and your work is so important. So I'm so happy to have another show with you today.
Thank you so much, Peter. Now, you obviously have a YouTube channel. Where can folks go to get your body of work up on YouTube?
Yeah, the channel name is my name, Peter J. Period R-E-A is my family name, Ray, R-E-A. So that's it. It's pretty simple.
Okay, wonderful. Good. And you're out of Cleveland now. Obviously, you're a big Cleveland sports enthusiast. And the Browns and the Cavs and formerly the Indians. We were just talking about that.
Right.
Have all been long time Cleveland established teams with great histories to themselves. Are you a serious Cleveland sports fan, or you just kind of happen to be in Cleveland and doing your work out of there?
Oh, when I was 13 years old, 1973, I came from a very good family, but my sister had died, and my parents were kind of sad. And anyway, I was going through adolescence, and I don't know why, but did I become a Cleveland sports fan. I put everything into it, and I was obsessed. And and I really. Yeah, so I've been, there's more to life than following sports teams. And then I got in the Philippines. I couldn't follow Cleveland sports over there, especially back in the 90s. So I got into history, and that's sort of how I thought. And I discovered all these forgotten championships in Cleveland. I thought, oh, this is great. So yeah, I've been, since 1973, one of these diehard Cleveland sports fans because I grew up here.
Along with the heartbreaks and the heartaches over the years as well, I'm sure. Except for the Cavs with LeBron and Kyrie, yeah.
Well, that's why it's. I loved hearing what Craig Elo when he talked about his father helping him after, since he was the defender. Or he actually hit the shot that put him ahead, but then he was the defender who Jordan got the shot off, and I love what he talked about his father helping him. And the thing we're getting. Time passes, and I've realized that you're a fan, and I have so much respect for athletes, especially pro athletes, for what they're able to accomplish. But the thing is, in life, there's different types of winning and losing. And even though I'm a sports fan, but I think what's really important is having good character, and so that's this obsession with championships and everything, we need to be good people, and so to me that's, I've gotten, as I've gotten older, I mean, it still hurts, if your team's in the playoffs and they lose, and when the Cavs, when LeBron left the second time and they got swept in the final, it really hurt, but, that's part of life. Life has its, these experiences we go through.
That's right. And the lessons to be learned from that.
Right.
That's one of the great things I've learned with sports is, you learn how to win. You learn how to, not get too heady about it, not get too, boastful or proud about it. And you learn how to lose, how to continue to keep it in perspective, go back to the drawing board and prepare yourself for another day. I mean, that's life, and that's sports as well.
Yeah, that's so important. Respect for the noble opponent and having respect. We have to, as fans, we have to, we can't make, championships everything in our lives, because otherwise we're going to be just miserable. Only one team's going to win a championship in each sport. So that's why, I love the story of Louis Tiant, who was a baseball player. He left Cuba. And he didn't see his parents for like 12 years because he couldn't go back. And then the Red Sox lost the World Series, a tough World Series in 1975. But, he had such a good attitude about it, because, of course, he'd experienced tougher things than losing a baseball World Series, not being able to see his parents. So there are hardships in life. I think this is God's world, so all the hardships do serve a purpose to help us to develop qualities if we can accept them, to become better people, to become closer to God, and to try to be God, servants of God.
Right, exactly. Now you've had a nice mix of guests on your show over the years and over the time I've been on as well. But throughout the time you've been doing your history of sports broadcast, what percentage, what kind of mix do you have? You have baseball, obviously, you have football and basketball, other sports. What is your mix, kind of? What do you think?
Well, just looking at the names, a lot of baseball. I think it's heavy on baseball, and there's some baseball players, there's some people in media, some authors of books, some other people into who also have their own podcasts. I'm trying to think. There's a football author. I don't know if we've had any. I think you're the only former NBA player we've had. And some people in the mental health field. I don't know if you've met Mel Velasquez. He's big into I think he has a show. You might like to talk to him, Mel. He's into the mental health field. We've had. I don't think we've had an NFL player. But different. The sports people people are so. Mostly baseball. As I look through the names here, but and different things. Several authors of books. So
wonderful. And books of various topics, or typically sports.
Baseball books, and like I said, the one guy. I had a baseball player, Jack Perconte, who wrote a book for coaches. And you can see youth coaches. That's one of his books, and it's really I've been reading it. It's really good because we really have a problem with youth sports with the way they're the parents being kind of, especially the money is so big now, and then so everyone thinks their kids are going to be pro and make all this money, and so they're sort of being too much pressure on kids. Youth sports, and a lot of kids are dropping out. So that's a real good book trying to help youth sports coaches. And some of them are on, I'm trying to think of the other. This, like I said, this guy, Mel Velasquez, he's writing a book on mental health, or I think he's already written it, dealing with, because, and there actually are a lot of books in sports dealing with the mind, and how important that is, and the importance of character
that's right.
For not only in sports, but in life itself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, before we dive into the NBA playoffs that are going on now, one thing that I've been working on for a long time, and I know you have interest in, is the fact that we've had 3 NCAA female athletes take their lives in the last 6 weeks. 3 is, a soccer player, a softball player, track and field. It's just astonishing what's happening to so many of our young people, the tremendous amount of stress that they put on themselves to be perfect, to excel, to just continue pushing themselves until they reach that breaking point, I guess. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but I take notice every time I hear about this, every time I read about it. What are your thoughts on some of the stresses and the tensions on these student athletes? And what can the NCAA do a better job of trying to help these things?
Well, that's a very deep issue, and the church I'm in is called Self-Realization Fellowship. It teaches yoga meditation, and it's you and I both have had depression, and we've both had faced the thoughts of suicide, and the thing is, there's so much unhappiness in the world in general because people are seeking for, they think material things will bring them happiness, and we have to have a spiritual life. I think there is a source of happiness, and God is that source. And if we ignore that source, we are going to. The result's going to be widespread misery. And the final result is suicide for individuals. But it's not just suicide. It's just sort of so many people sort of living miserable lives because they don't make any spiritual effort, and they don't understand that life, that God does exist. There is a source of joy and happiness, and if we make effort, we can we can tap into to have a relationship with God, and then we can feel happiness. But without that, I don't think you really can. I don't know what you could tell the NCAA about that, but and we have to care. We have to understand that, if parents think, for parents, if they think the only thing that matters with their kids is getting high grades and doing well in sports, and they don't. We have to understand the importance of character in general. That we need to be good people, and that God will help us to improve our character through prayer and meditation and spiritual study and service.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Peter. I mean, you and I have not been shy about sharing our faith and our relationship with God, and that's great. I mean, we talk about it every 2 weeks on your show as a part of our interview every time. But, we live in a country where it's becoming more and more secular. Church, I think, is losing its influence. Religion is losing its influence. Young people are growing up with a sense of not really belonging to anything in particular, and they just kind of go with the wind blows. It's all about me, look at me, look what I'm doing. And they forget the real value of deep personal relationships with others in your life who love you and care about you. And maybe, you're right. There's nothing the NCAA can do about that. My big push and onus is always trying to get the individual to really start taking hold of their lives and reevaluating their values and what they stand for, so that they can handle these storms that come your way throughout life, because sure enough, there will be storms. And I don't think our young people are prepared well enough anymore for those ups and downs and trials and tribulations of life.
Well, the thing is, we've lived in a world where in the past you've had religious leaders who really were not, who were hypocrites, or who weren't that really good people. I mean, there have been, but there have to be more people. See, there is a lot of atheism, and people don't think God exists because they don't see any. There has to, of course, it is a different relationship because He's invisible. You can't. But the thing is, He needs to be manifested in the lives of people. There's been so much hypocrisy. People who have talked about God. When I was growing up, I went to church. My parents. And the thing is, I became a very troubled young man. And my parents really couldn't help me because they didn't have the ability. I mean, they were good people, but they didn't have the ability to help me. And so that's why there needs to be more and more people really making spiritual effort so that they can become positive and caring people, so that we can help each other. People need help, but they don't think, well, God doesn't. They don't see any. And they see these hypocrites who have been religious leaders, and especially if they've had bad. When you grow up, you're going to church every Sunday, and it doesn't do anything for you, and you don't feel any. It's helping you, because that's the thing. I remember going to church. I was in the Episcopal church, and we were going every Sunday, and our family was falling apart, and that experience didn't give me any sense that God existed. So you have a lot of people. Yeah, they've had experiences with church. It didn't do anything. Nothing. They didn't get the help they needed, so they gave up on it. But that doesn't mean God doesn't exist. God does exist, even if He's not apparent in certain churches that weren't really. And see, the thing is, Christianity hasn't been Christian. We have to, and the goal is the bars are very high in Christianity to love God and to love each other. But we haven't done that, and we need. It's very simple. We can do it, but we have to want to do it. And it seems like people are very stubborn before they're willing to make spiritual effort. And there's so much suffering that people go through, and very often they still don't make any effort. But God's waiting, and He's always there, and He will help us and He is helping us. Even if we don't, often we don't know it. He is helping, but we have to make more of an effort to reach out to Him, to cooperate with Him, and to be receptive to His help.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That's great. In the 7 or 8 minutes we have left, I'd like to talk a little bit about the NBA playoffs, and what do you think so far of the playoff series? Of course, we saw the Brooklyn Nets get swept out of there by the Boston Celtics. Who's your pick, and what do you think so far? What's going on?
I developed a simple strategy with the playoffs, and I researched the teams in terms of when was their last championship, if ever, or if they started. So right now I'm rooting for a Sixers Suns finals. Sixers won a title in '83, their last one.
Right.
The Suns never.
Yep.
The Suns have had a team since 1968. And I really hope the Suns win it because it's 1968, so that's like 54 years, right? And never won a title. If you look at the NBA overall, the history of the NBA Finals, like the Celtics and Lakers have won more than half of all the championships. And
That's
so
right.
I'm always rooting for the teams because, here we are in Cleveland. Since in my lifetime, the Cavs in 2016 were the only team to win a title. And so I'm rooting for the Sixers. With the Sixers, that's 17. That's 39 years. That's a long time, back to Dr. J's time. And the Suns never. So I'm rooting for those two teams to make it.
I was in the league back in '83 when the Sixers won. So those were, Andrew Toney, Moses Malone, Mo Cheeks, all those guys. Great team, and we thought they'd be putting a title run together for 2 or 3 or 4 years. But they just had the one, and that was it. Phoenix made the finals back in the 90s, I believe.
And last year, right?
And then last year as well. So they made the finals a couple of times, just haven't pulled home the whole thing yet. So, great. That's really good. What do you think about these super teams now? Teams are going out just buying the best players, putting 4, 5, 6 all-stars on their roster. I think the Brooklyn Nets tried that, and the Lakers tried that, of course. So what do you think about super teams?
Yeah, I don't like it because, and that's the thing, I was talking to my son about, he actually had some notes. I said, you should be on this show there. He said he wants to talk about the playoffs. He said he was talking about Chris Paul could win his first title if the Suns win. But he was talking about how the Warriors, the thing about them is that Steph Curry is such a good guy, and and he doesn't have the big ego, So you talk about chemistry, so that's why. And I think Steve Kerr's a really good guy, and so they developed that team was developed, and then of course they've had Durant. The Durant era came, and when they were almost too strong, and then that ended, and then they had injuries, and now they're back. They're a very strong contender. So, to me, that is even though they beat us 3 out of 4 years in the finals, but to me, character is so important. And then you have the superstar Steph Curry, and that's what my son was telling me. Is like that's why, because a lot of teams, I think with LeBron, maybe because LeBron from such a young age got his ego inflated, by being so great, and Steph wasn't like that, but I think LeBron's problem has been kind of that he's been so good and maybe had a big ego, and I don't know if he has been able to help other guys improve. And then he's always leaving, so there's sort of uncertainty about him. But anyway, so I think I think it's good. I admire the Warriors for being able to do what they've done to develop a team, and you have to admire Steph Curry again for his humility and his ability to be a good team player and have that humility even though he's a tremendous player.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Winning championships it's a matter of having a really good coach who demands the respect of his players, and having great players who are able to submerge their egos a little bit and allow themselves as a team to be coached. I look at the Lakers and, 4 or 5 all-stars in the team, but they just couldn't get it together this year. The Nets the same way. Yeah, Kyrie Irving missed most of the season because of COVID and all the other stuff going on. So they never could really gel. They didn't have that chemistry. You could see it in Kevin Durant's face and in his body language. He just wasn't really into the series the way that he normally has been. And I've been on really, really talented teams too. And I can tell you, if the guys aren't getting along, and, we're out there playing together, but if you're not getting along on and off the court and really have each other's backs, almost as best friends and a true team, you're just not going to win it. I think I saw a statistic once that said only about 15% of the NBA players ever win a championship. So 85% of us never, ever win. And I played against a lot of the great guys, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, Karl Malone, Stockton. They never won. And I didn't win. And so the vast majority of the guys I know and played with did not win championships, and that's really what it comes down to. But it takes more than just having talent. Talent is good, and talent makes the coach. If you have a great talented team and they're willing to listen to the coach is a genius. If you have a great talented team and they're not listening to you, the coach gets fired. So that's just the way it goes with these kind of things. Wow. Now, have you done any publications or anything yourself over the years, Peter?
No, I haven't. I've just been making these YouTube videos. Yeah, I haven't written any books. No, I did write a book. It's unpublished, but it didn't go anywhere.
Well, I mean, people are so interested in the history of sports, especially when you lay it out and tell the story. I mean, this is really what it's all about. But hey, the podcast, people even more so instead of reading, they're even more so into listening to podcasts or watching videos. Because our attention span just isn't quite what it used to be. But, wow, that's great. And where do you hope to go from here with your podcast?
Well, I don't know. I mean, things with with you, that's ongoing, so I'm real happy about that. I miss every 2 weeks, so then the other weeks Mark Mancini keeps bringing people in that are, I've been relying on him. I've been trying to get Sam McDowell back because, he got into recovery from alcohol, did a lot of good work, similar to yours, in terms of mental health, the mental health field. So we'll see who shows up, and I was, like I said, Mark Mancini's done a really good job of bringing wonderful guests. That's how I met you. So he's got really a wonderful network that continues to grow of people, and so we'll just keep going.
That's great. I'll have to turn you on to a real dear friend of mine, Arif Khatib, out of the Bay Area in California, and he put together the Multi-Ethnic Sports Hall of Fame. And he goes back 70, 80 years to the old Negro leagues and the segregation and all the things. A lot of these great athletes of color, black athletes especially, who never got the recognition. And so he put together a Multi-Ethnic Sports Hall of Fame. And he's still out writing books and telling the story. I think he'd be a great addition to your show because history is what he's all about. And history is what you're all about as well. So I'll make sure I make that introduction for you.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. I'm looking for guests. If you want anybody you want to refer to me, I'd be real happy. And I did every year of Cleveland, the Negro League teams. That's, to me, it's very important because those teams were really were forgotten in the leagues, and then some people thought, it's sort of shameful, this sort of painful memory, but they definitely need to be remembered, and I'm real interested in hearing more about that for sure. Good.
And of course, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar writes books on history, the Harlem Renaissance, the Harlem Wrens, and those guys. So he's done some great books. I just finished Kareem's book last week, John Wooden and I. What a fantastic book that was. That's Kareem is my GOAT, because of the work he does off the court, but also the great body of work he did on the court. He gets overlooked in that conversation a lot, but when you put it all together, he's the guy that really, for 20 years, nonstop excellence every single year, was just fantastic to play against him. Well, as we start to wrap up in the next minute or so. What is your favorite sport you like to follow and keep track of?
Well, it's been baseball. That's why this Guardians, the name change hurts so much because now I'm rooting for them to lose, so they'll change the name back to Indians because it really hurts me. Yeah, I can't. Baseball. It was the summer game. It always represented. Cleveland winters are tough, and baseball represented spring and summer and no school, and so I had this love of baseball, and so yeah, I would say in the Philippines I ended up having a baseball program for little kids. It was really fun, and I really enjoyed that. So, but actually, in the Philippines, basketball is the number one sport, and if you ever go back to China, you might consider going to the Philippines. They'd love to see you there. It's wonderful, wonderful people in the Philippines. And basketball is their number one sport. They're an amazing people. Yeah. And I played a lot of basketball in the Philippines, actually. In fact, in our school we played, and then with a bunch of kids in the park, I played a ton of basketball in the Philippines.
Yeah, I've been to the Philippines once. As a matter of fact, I was at a basketball Hall of Fame induction there for one of my NBA colleagues, Billy Ray Bates, who played with the Portland Trailblazers, played in the Philippines for several years.
Okay.
And he's one of the all-time greats down there. So
wow,
well,
that's so cool.
Peter, yeah, our time is running out, though, Pete. I just want to say thank you so much for being my guest and returning the favor of giving me the honor to be on your show so many times. We'll do it again. We're basketball heavy now. After the playoffs, we'll be getting into baseball quite a bit. A lot of baseball guys coming up. But, hey, people out there listening, make sure you tune in to the American Sports History Podcast by Peter Ray, and also Peter Ray on YouTube channel. This is James Donaldson, standing above the crowd. We will see you next week back at our regular time, regular station. Thanks so much, Pete. Have a great day. See you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. James. God bless you.
You got it.
Okay.